drivers are ready and they are strapping into their cars, about to get going for the qualifying session of the Red Mug 500 here at DDT International as we get going with week number 3 of Season 2 of NASMARB. Hello again, friends. Ricochet, glad to have you back as we get going here in a brand new race. This is the Red Mug 500, week 3 of the second season of NASMARB, and a lot of storylines to keep an eye on, including some drivers that really struggled last week. There's one of the cars right there, the 93 of Electro. Going to try to bounce back after failing to qualify for last week's race. Keep an eye on the teammate of Electro for OB Racing. We'll talk about Streamer in a moment. But first, here's the qualifying order, starting with the 2 drivers that failed to qualify last week. That's Electro and Prime. Then Nugget, Sal, and Winks. Spitzer, Steve, Confetti, Oak, and Mozilla. That's the first half of the qualifying. As we flip the page and have a look at group number 2, it's Murakami, Woodpecker, and Neptune, Quillo, Streamer, and Piper, Bloodstorm, Earl, Jack Tato, and then last week's winner, Lemon Drizel. Keep an eye on that 26 of Streamer, who has never lost here at DDT International, winning both races last season. Also, the pole sitter from this race 1 season ago. But first, we will turn to their OB Racing teammate. This is the 93 of Electro with Texas Rollhouse on the hood, as always. There are the looks at the career numbers for Electro, both here at DDT International and so far this season, which includes a DNQ last week, but turning their sights now to DDT, as they are the first car to go for the Red Mug 500 qualifying session. Looks like a pretty solid run here. Nothing crazy as far as out of control, and that's a 391 from the inside line. Of course, we'll have to see what that looks like as we play it out further on in this 20-car field. Here's the 17 of Prime. Third race now, trying to make what would be the second race in the CCR number 17 for Crimson Cruisers Racing. Finished 13th in this race last season. And just a 16.5 average as far as finishing at this racetrack overall, including a DNQ. That's what they had last week in the second race of the season, trying to have that change. And the inside line causing some problems here for the 17. Prime really slow and bouncing off the walls and barely coming across the finish line. A very disappointing 5.36. Got really wild there, getting into that final turn, and then just really stalled out down the final backstretch. And just barely couldn't get the whole car across, in fact. So certainly not what they wanted to see there. Here's the 99 of Nugget. Driving for Canada, of course, for Coos Motorsports. Got the red mug on the back quarter panel there of this car. As Nugget gets ready to go, finished 15th in this race last season. And of course, finished 18th in last week's race. A little bit of trouble getting out of the gate there, but looks like a pretty solid time now, slowing but speeding back up at that final stretch. It'll even out to a 4:05, and good enough for second out of the 3 to go so far. And Nugget has had a little bit of success here, comparative at least to what they've done at other places, as they'll settle in. Here's the number 1 of Sal in his third race for Fortune Racing with Killian on the hood. That's a slick-looking car. 10th place in this race a year ago. And you can see there are the numbers. So far, 5 heat wins this season, 6 career heat wins. This is a pretty good track for Sal, including a fastest lap here. Let's see what the number 1 has from the inside line. It's a pretty solid start. Can they keep it straight? Ooh, got a little sideways there in the final turn. Comes across the line, and it will be a 4:38. So certainly not as productive as Sal probably would have hoped for. And Sal, as you can see in the bottom left of your screen, coming off of a career worst finish last week, finished 17th. As we move forward to the number 13 of Winks. Same scheme as always for the Misfortune Racing driver, who finished 6th in this race last season. 4 heat wins here. An average finish of 8th at this track with an average qualifying position of 10th. You can see the numbers not so great so far for the 13 this season. From the inside line, here comes the number 13 out of the gate. There we go. Ooh, looked like he got a little wild there into the first turn. Wild going into the second turn. Really slow and got to get across the line. And Winks does, but with a disappointing 5.13. And that will, really sideways there, coming down the backstretch. And that will be good for just 4th out of 5. Here's the 25 of Spitzer for Woff's Motorsports and Woff's Bowling Alley. The classic scheme there. 3rd place finish, a finale appearance in this race last season. Finished 3rd. There are the numbers. Very disappointing so far for Spitzer, who's had a lot of speed previously. Last season, a lot of speed in that car for Spitzer. Not the case so far this season. Through a couple of races, and Spitzer will look to turn that around here. Looks pretty good, slowing down a little bit down the backstretch, but still a pretty solid time. And it'll come in at a 4.13. That's right in the middle there, 3rd out of 6 so far. By the way, you can see it down in the bottom left. Some great little tidbits there. Spitzer with 4 fastest laps. You saw that on the stats line. That is 2nd all-time here at DDT International. Now the 32, beg your pardon there, of Steve the Wheelman for Titan Motorsports. And the Lucky Titan on the hood for the Wheelman, who finished 19th in qualifying in this race last season, so did not qualify for this race. Certainly disappointing there. That was one of the 2 drivers. We'll talk about the other when we get to them. But a disappointing run at this race a year ago. Now Steve with a new team, maybe some more confidence. A lot of speed in this car so far. Banging off the wall there, but still another solid time, and even 4 seconds. And Steve, who has been very, very good at qualifying thus far this season. The best qualifier through 2 races, with another solid time from the inside line. As we move on to the 7 of Confetti. Killian once again on the hood there for Fortune Racing. Saw it in the gold and green. Now it's pink and almost like a cream color there for the 7 of Confetti. There are the numbers at DDT International. A couple of heat wins, but only an average finish of 12th. However, that's better than what we've seen so far from the 7, as out of the gates. Looks pretty solid. Got a little high there in the 2nd turn, and that's going to cost a little bit of time. It'll come out to a 4.33 and 5th place out of the 8 to run. You saw right there, really got sideways and high up into the turn, which costs a lot of speed here. And you have a look at the defending champion. This is the 48 of Oak for FFA Racing, Marbles for Autism, and this was the first race ever run by Oak after failing to qualify in the first 2 races of the season last year. A 5th place finish here at this race, so certainly some, I would say, probably pretty positive memories as you look. A couple of fastest laps, an average qualifying of 2nd, an average finish of 5th. Pretty good numbers here at DDT International. This is not as good of a run, though. A little slow and still slowing down further and further. And a disappointing 4.56 for Oak. Will run 7th out of the 9 to go so far. Yeah, that was a not a great run there for Oak. Certainly disappointing. As we move forward to the 66 of Mozilla for Coos Motorsports. And nothing really sticks out here at DDT International for Mozilla. Just a 15.5 average finish, a 12.5 average qualifying position. And so far this season, 11th for qualifying, 13th for finish, and just 1 heat win so far. So the 66, and for that matter, Nugget in the 99, trying to turn things around here for this brand new team. And that's not going to help, as that's going to run just a 4.8. Just didn't have a lot of speed, got loose there on the back end, and a 4.8 is 8th out of the 10. We are halfway through qualifying on the first lap as we move into the top 10 from last week's race. This is the number 4 of Murakami, who did not run well in this race a year ago. 18th, that's dead last out of the cars to qualify. You can see there are the numbers overall here at this track, an average finish of 15th, qualifying of 16th. And right around the middle of the pack so far through the first 2 races for Murakami, with an average finish of 9th and an average qualifying of 11th with 3 heat wins. From the inside line, here we go. Looks pretty solid. Slows a little bit there out of the last turn, but still a pretty good run. That's a 4.16, and cracking into the top 5 for the moment is Murakami. And Murakami will give way to the 43. This is Woodpecker for Red Pandas Racing. The first of the Red Pandas Racing cars to go so far in this qualifying session for probably the most successful team in the sport. And there are the numbers for Woodpecker. 11th is a pretty darn good qualifying, considering the fact that Woodpecker finished dead last in qualifying in this race last season. Did not qualify. There's the DNQ on the left side of the screen. Let's see what Woodpecker can do as maybe a comeback moment. No, not fast. This is slow coming down the track and getting across with what is going to be the second slowest time thus far. Just a 5.27. And Woodpecker struggles here at DDT International, continuing here. As a slow lap for Woodpecker, that will be just 11th out of the 12 cars to go. As Neptune will stand in the number 11 for Defy Scent Vehicles and ASE on the hood. Of course, a winner in the season opener locked into the playoffs is Neptune, so they're racing for wins now. Just going to try to pick up as many as possible. Already 12 heat wins. Couple of fastest laps. And a pretty solid, not great, but pretty solid finish last week after the win in week 1. And this looks like a pretty good run here. That's a nice time. That is a, let's see, 4:05. Officially across the line, tying with Nugget there. And Neptune into the top 5. Will run 4th at the moment. And here's the 9 of Quillo. Quillo for Marble Sports Worldwide, that's the team. MSWP is the sponsor. 8th place finish in this race last season. And a 5.5 average finish so far this season, with a average 10th place qualifying. Couple of heat wins at this track. 7 heat wins on the season, including a fastest lap. So Quillo off to a pretty good start, trying to keep that going with some speed here. And it's an alright lap. Slowed down quite a bit at the end there, and it's going to cost him. That is a 4.43 for Quillo. That's 9th right there, out of the 14 to go. That really slowed toward the end. Here's the 26, and one of the cars to keep an eye on. This is Streamer for OB Racing. Hershey Designs on the hood. The winner of this race last season. The pole sitter of this race last season, and there are the incredible numbers. 6 fastest laps, 20 heat wins, 2 wins, an average finish of first because we've only run here twice, and a 4.5 average qualifying position. Streamer off to a little bit of a slow start this season. This is exactly the racetrack that they want to go to see if they can turn it around, and a pretty speedy lap here. Had a little bit of a problem there coming out of right there, got real high and kind of slammed into the bottom wall, but still a 3.92, just 1/100th of a second off the time set up there by the current pole sitter. So a pretty solid run there for Streamer. So from someone who's never lost at this track to someone who's never run at this track. Here's the rookie. It's Piper in her third race or third qualifying attempt. She's got really good numbers. She's been fast. She's been very successful through the first couple of races of her career. And, of course, running for Red Pandas Racing, not too bad yourself. Here we go. This one doesn't have as much speed, it seems. Yeah, that was not as good of a run there for Piper. Going to be her most disappointing qualifying run so far. Of course, you get 2 laps, one from the inside and the outside. But just a 4.52 will land Piper into 11th. And so far, not a great start for Red Pandas Racing. Going to hear a lot of them now as we get 3 of the final 5 from Red Pandas Racing. But one of them that is not is the car right up right now. That's the 86 of Bloodstorm from Misfortune Racing. Getting ready to go for their first qualifying lap. Pretty good numbers so far this season. 6 heat wins. They've got 3 heat wins here. And here we go. Bloodstorm comes out of turn 2, slows a bit, but looks still pretty solid there. Yep, that's an even 4 seconds. And moving into 4th is Bloodstorm. That will kick Neptune out of the top 5 from the inside line. And Bloodstorm with a pretty good run there. Now back to Red Pandas Racing. This is Earl in the 33. Gotta love that beautiful color scheme there. And gotta also love what you see here on both sides of your screen. The numbers at DDT International and the numbers this season. Both have been pretty solid for Earl, coming off of a 3rd place finish in last week's run. Got a little bit loose there and banged into the wall with the front end, and this will be a 4-4-1. So Earl will go into 11th place. And yeah, those numbers not good. 11th, 13th, and 17th right now for Red Pandas Racing from the inside line. That is certainly surprising and maybe a little bit of a concern for the car that's now on deck, as up is now Jack Tato for Unified Racing. Unified and McExter on the hood. Jack Tato with a really good run last week to finish second. Very, very impressive after what has been a disappointing start to their career, but a good start to this season. And now setting up an opportunity to maybe do one better as the 12 gets ready to run from the inside line. Right now it's all OB Racing, Streamer and Electro running there in the top two positions, but this is a good run from the 12 of Jack Tato, and it's not even close. I told you what, wanted to do maybe one better, and at least qualifying-wise does maybe more than one better. That's a 3-6-1. To the top of the board goes Jack Tato from the inside line, and that was closing within less than 0.15 of a second of the fastest time ever run at this track. Talk more about that in a moment, but first here's Lemon Drizel, last week's winner. Already really impressive, really good numbers here at DDT International, including a runner-up finish in this race last season. Of course, had a little bit of trouble in this race, though. We'll talk about that after this run here. From the inside line, here is Lemon Drizel. And really slowing out of turn 2, and this is another slow time for a Red Pandas Racing car. That is a storyline to keep an eye on, as Drizel, who is incredibly fast basically all the time, with a certainly very disappointing run there. That will run out to a 4-6-4 and 16th. There are the numbers and the spots right now. Some trouble potentially if you're looking at Woodpecker and Prime. They sit in the spots not to transfer right now. And what is that? 12th, 14th, 16th, and 19th for Red Pandas Racing. On the other end of the spectrum, OB Racing with Electro and Streamer run second and third, but they're all chasing Jack Tato right now, who runs the fastest inside lap. Back to the top of the order, and here comes the 93 of Electro. Ran the second fastest time after the leadoff spot, and that will be a 4:06 from the outside line, average it to a 3:99. What I was going to say about Lemon Drizel, if you forgot about it, this was the only caution that happened in NASMARB history, happened in the finale of the Red Mug 500, as here's the 17 of Prime, who really needs a good lap and didn't get one. That is, I mean, it was all right. It's a 4.24, but still averages out to a 4.80, which means they're going to need some help here to be able to make the show. Lemon Drizel was, of course, ejected from his car. That's why I mentioned buckling up before they got ready for this one, as the 99 of Nugget gets ready to go, and that's a 4.09 from the outside, averaging it to a 4.07. And second out of 3 right now, and if you were not going to be sure whether or not Electro was going to make the show this time, not that there was much of a surprise with the second fastest lap on the inside line, it's official now. Here comes Sal wild out of the gate. Settles it down and comes across the line with a 4.06, an average of 4.22. And that is third out of the 4 to run so far. So Nugget is in, Electro is in, here is Winks, another one of the slow laps. Gonna need some help here. That's not gonna get it done. That's just not enough speed there. However, oh, look at that. That could be very, very important. It was a 4.44, which averages to a 4.79. That is 1/100th faster than Prime. Keep an eye and see if that ends up mattering at the very end of this thing. Here's Spitzer trying to put up a solid time, and it will be a 4.21 average, which is 1/100th faster than Sal. So some pretty tight times here as far as one driver just a little bit ahead of the other one. That was Spitzer over Sal for third currently. Here's Steve. A ton of speed so far this season. A little wild has been the one knock on Steve so far, but that's another really good run. A 3.8. And Steve goes to the top of the board looking for their second pole in 3 races so far this season. A 3.9. Fast enough to pass Electro there. Here comes the 7 of Confetti, who went hard into the wall, went into the wall again, and Confetti is going to average it to a 4.27. That's good enough for 6. Not a great run by any stretch, but it's still enough to be locked in, running 6th out of the 8 to go so far. Here's the 48 of Oak, who owns the track record, by the way. Not going to get it there. That is a really slow lap for Oak, who struggles to get across the line. A 4.6. It's a 4.58 average. It is enough to still get in, but that was a disappointing run there from Oak, who owns the track record for a single lap of 3.48. Nobody's hit that so far here in this qualifying, as Mozilla's all over the place here. Mozilla really struggles at this track, and they struggled enough that they just cost themselves a spot automatically in. Winx will take that, thank you very much. That's a 4.79, enough to put Winx in. That 4.8 from Mozilla is even with Prime in the 17, and this thing could get very, very interesting if those two are going to compete there maybe for a final spot, as they are now 9th and 10th, respectively, the final two cars on the qualifying line as far as those that have gone both laps. Here's the 4 of Murakami. That's not a great run, but not a terrible one either. A 4.31 is the average, and into 7th goes Murakami. Here's Woodpecker. Let's see if they can make up some time. And they're not going to do it. They're not going to get out. Oh boy, that is a big problem. And Woodpecker is going to be eliminated automatically, as they were the slowest time already. That is going to be the first DNF for a lap in qualifying this season. We haven't seen that happen yet. It happened a few times last year. It does not happen here. Interestingly enough, Woodpecker has only finished 3 of the 6 qualifying laps at this track, a disastrous track for the 43, and they are going to fail to qualify for this race. And Neptune, as you see a look at the replay there, they get a 4.43 after the average time, moving into 8th out of the 13 to run. Here's Quillo, who ran a 4.43 on their first lap. They get a little bit of problem. Got to get out of the turn. They do. That was a near disaster for Quillo, who limps it home, and limps it home so much so that they're going to drop into the red. Oh boy, a 5.32 is going to cost them. They're going to average out to a 4.88, and Quillo is in big trouble here. And now, whoa, a big spin from Streamer, who's coming across backwards. Got to pick up some speed, and the 26 with a disaster. A 4.95, it's going to average out to a 4.44 and put Streamer in 9th. But Streamer, who ran the third fastest lap from the inside line, is going to end up with a very disappointing qualifying run. Now here is Piper, and Piper having problems. Another slow lap here. Piper with a 4.83. Things are getting crazy here toward the end of the final lap of qualifying, as everybody may be trying a bit too hard. Piper's going to move into 11th right now. Now here is Bloodstorm, who ran an even 4-second lap. Getting as much as they possibly can, but doing it while still staying calm. Bloodstorm will even out to a 4.13 qualifying lap, which is good enough for 4th place right now. With 3 cars to go, here is Earl, who ran a 4.41. And this one is a solid time, nothing great. It's a 4.73 to average a 4.57, and 11th place for Earl. This has been a very strange qualifying run. Here's Jack Tato, who ran the fastest time and is really the only competition for Steve. Can Jack Tato keep the speed going? This looks like another pretty good lap. Very solid, picking up speed down the backstretch. It's a 3.83 and enough to essentially clinch the pole for Jack Tato, who runs a 3.61, the second fastest ever lap from the inside there, and does a pretty good job from the outside. Now here's Lemon Drizel trying to pick up some speed and maybe some momentum after a disappointing first run. It is a 4.07, much better, with the average of a 4.36, good enough for 10th, so getting into the top half, but certainly some adjustments going to be needed to be made there for Lemon Drizel. Everybody's going to be talking about Jack Tato, though, after a very impressive second-place finish a week ago. Now a pole, the first career pole for the driver of the 12. Wow, that is a certainly very optimistic look for Jack Tato, who had really disappointed through the first season of their career. However, they get the win in the qualifying session. They'll start on the pole as the #1 overall seed with an average time of 3.72. And as we said, the second fastest single lap ever in the history of DDT International, only behind Oak's track record of 3.48. So very, very impressive from Jack Tato. You can see Steve had a lot of speed, as did Electro. Nugget and Bloodstorm are the rest of the top 5. Then Spitzer, Sal, Confetti, and Murakami, those are the top seeds. Lemon Drizel, Neptune, Streamer, who had really good speed, but then a really big mistake there on that second lap. Earl, Oak, Piper struggling for the first time. Winx, Mozilla, and Prime are the final ones to get in. And then that sends you to the 19th and 20th. That is going to be Quillo in the 9, failing to qualify, as does Woodpecker in the 43, who, for the second straight race at this racetrack, or second straight race in the Red Mug 500, rather, is the slowest car, a 5.95, as they fail to qualify. A lot to keep an eye on as we get going for tomorrow's race, the Red Mug 500. Until then, though, I'm Ricochet, and you've been watching a presentation of MSPN.